Good morning, Internet. Let me make sure that everything is good on my end. That seemed a little bit too easy. It's been a while since I've done this. I apologize for missing last week, but this morning we're going to answer all of your real estate investing questions. So whatever you've got, go ahead and post it in the comments. R&R. So in the final, it looks like I only got half your question, buddy. Edwin Janeo, what's up, man? I know who you are, silly rascal. I appreciate you being on this morning, man. I hope all's going well with the properties that you've been working on. Man, I'm excited. Let's see. I guess while we get started, I want to go ahead and say thanks to everybody for sharing and supporting the channel. We have grown tremendously. I think the last live stream that we did, I missed last Friday, so it should have been the time before that. We were at we just hit 5,000 subscribers, and now sometime today we should hit 6,000. So things are really starting to heat up in the YouTube channel world. Let's see if there are any good questions. All right. Thoughts on Zillow rental management? I think it's probably a pretty solid idea. I haven't used it personally, but I've got a good friend who actually two people. I had this conversation recently. He uses Zillow almost exclusively, and he's got around 90 properties. So that's the only way that he actually finds his residents is he just posts the property available for rent on Zillow, and they have a pretty solid application and background check feature, I suppose. So he's very happy with it, and he was just talking about how Zillow rental management has made it very easy to do all of his own leasing. And then the other friend that I have, the one that I first thought of, he has 2 or 3 properties, and the same. He uses Zillow. He has everybody that's interested just go ahead and fill out an application, runs a background check, and I guess picks one from there. A lot of the property management software generally has some sort of feature included in it. I know another friend of mine uses apartments.com, and you can do the same application and background check through there. We use Appfolio. I think I've mentioned that a few times. Granted, they have a 50 property minimum, so if you have fewer than 50 properties, you probably won't be able to use Appfolio, but they have a feature where you can do all of your leasing, all the applications and background checks through Appfolio, and they'll actually, I don't know if Zillow does this because I'm not familiar with it, but they will, Appfolio will put it on Zillow and all of the other platforms that people can find properties to rent. Looking for a property manager in Toledo? No, unfortunately, I don't. Toledo is almost in Canada. I don't get up there that much. When I first moved to Ohio, I had no idea that Ohio was one of the states that bordered the Great Lakes. So as soon as I found that out, I really regretted my decision to move here temporarily. It's still been a good idea, but man, my geography is not so great. Those North Carolina public school systems didn't teach me anything higher than the Mason-Dixon. What are your thoughts on wholesaling while buying rentals also? I think wholesaling is a great way to make a lot of capital very quickly. So I think if you're starting with nothing, then wholesaling is probably a good idea. If you want additional capital apart from the capital that I guess you live on, then I think it's a great way to make a lot of money with just one transaction. It is a lot of legwork. It takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to find these deals, to talk to people in order to, convince them that you're trustworthy enough that you have their best interests. And I've never wholesaled anything, so I guess that should also be taken into consideration. But I think if you have a need for capital, flipping, wholesaling, and all of that is probably a good idea. But, the reason that I don't do either wholesaling or flipping is I made a vow to myself long ago that I would never do anything that only paid me once. So flipping is ruled out, and so is wholesaling. So there's that. Do the people who have Zillow show the property, or does Zillow do that too? No, Zillow is not that cool. Yeah, you would still have to show the property. So the guy that uses it that has 90 properties, because I have been considering taking the leasing portion in-house. We currently use a realtor to lease out our properties, but you know, that is a big part of your business that you would be giving away. So with the guy that uses Zillow, he's got 90 properties. He says that what he does is he'll put the property out there. If somebody calls him on it, he will advise them to drive to the property, look in the windows, look around, and if they're still interested, then put in an application and call them back. So I think that's his way of not showing it excessively. And that's the biggest hurdle when I'm thinking about taking it in-house that I'm trying to overcome, because I do not want to field a lot of phone calls. Communication is not my strong suit. Getting back to people timely, I'm not good at that. And I'm also not trying to run around showing properties all day. Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate you being on here. I don't think you need to wholesale personally, but if you come across a good deal, I think that's what I see the most that investors do. Like if, especially once people know that you're a real estate investor, you're going to get a bunch of leads from a bunch of places. And if one property is still a good deal, but for whatever reason you don't want it, then you could easily market it to other people and just give yourself like a couple $1,000 finder's fee if the numbers are that good. That's what I would highly suggest. Or you could always just give it to another investor in good faith. All right. Let's see here. Any more questions? If you guys are shy on the questions, this is going to be a really quick live stream. Super duper quick. I have one good question from the comments from Jason Quivero. I lost my glasses, so I'm going to be doing a lot of squinting when I'm trying to read these comments. He says, I have a question. Let's assume the value of the house is more than what it was purchased for in a foreclosed situation. This was a comment on the foreclosure video that I've done. What's stopping the owner from selling the house immediately and repaying the bank? This way they can profit from the house plus receive the amounts paid on the loan minus interest. That's a phenomenal question, and nothing is stopping them from doing that. So unfortunately, I found that a lot of times in real estate investing, and probably all of business, you kind of profit off other people's, I don't want to say ignorance, because it's not like they are being negligent, but there's just so much that people don't know. And if you are not necessarily savvy on, the entire process, your options available to you, and you know that you're just behind on your bills, some people just kind of get up and go because they're overwhelmed with the thought of also trying to sell their house. A lot of foreclosed homes also aren't in the best of shape when you get them. So I'm not so sure if that is reflective on, I have never had anything foreclosed on, but I imagine it would be very stressful, and a lot of the standards of which I had would probably go away. But at the same time, I think if you understand how real estate works, if you understand your options available to you, I think most people would attempt to sell the property if the value was more than the amount owned in the bank. But especially a lot of times, unfortunately, people never even get in that situation because with all the loans available to first time home buyers or veterans, or even just like the traditional financing, you could put as low as like 3% down. Is that right? Sometimes like 2.5% down. So there's very slim equity. And as mortgages work and amortization works, um, for the first couple of years, you're primarily paying interest, not much on principal at all. So there's going to be several years that pass before you have or dramatically increase your equity. But nonetheless, you could still, hopefully, the market has appreciated so you could sell it. But that's a great question. And I think you're right. What do I have in the pipelines working this month? We are about to buy a lot of properties. So I just sent out a bunch of text messages and emails to all the realtors that I know, all the wholesalers that I know, letting them know that I am back in buying mode. Our refinance that we were doing, the 36 property refinance, I've mentioned it a few times. That closes on the 27th. So we're going to have, all of that cash to go out and buy additional property. So hopefully our goal is by the end of the second quarter to have around 120 properties. So that would be us buying, 40. So hopefully we can turn the 36 property refinance into an additional, 35 properties because we currently have 85. We've got 3 units under contract that close on February 1st. And then a good friend of mine owns a 3 unit right next door to the 3 unit that I own. And I'm trying to encourage him to sell that property to me. That's in my pipeline. All right. We're 15 minutes in. We got 6 people and 0 current questions. So if you have any questions, thoughts, need any encouragement, have any questions about real estate, don't be shy. It'll make for a very short live stream. I got to tell you, though, I'm so encouraged by this channel's growth. It's really starting to pick up. JJ from New York City. Good morning, sir. My daughter always tells me in the morning, Daddy, don't go to work to buy more houses. Don't go to work, buy more houses. That's awesome. Perhaps she understands more houses. Yeah, that breaks my heart, man. I mean, I work for myself and all, but my son he still tries to encourage me to not go to work. It's a fine balance, man. I mean, if you don't go to work, then obviously the amount of money that you're going to make, even once you get into real estate investing, you're still going to have so much to do. Even if you have enough homes to stay at home to where you don't have to work, you still have a lot of stuff to do to make sure that your portfolio runs smoothly. So, I don't know. One guy once told me that no matter what you do or how hard you try, you can never spend enough time with your wife or kids. And I think I believe that. So even if I were to stay home all day, it would still seem like I didn't get enough time with them. Need encouragement. What you got? What's on your plate? What's in your pipeline for the month? Yeah. How old is your daughter, JJ? I have a 4-year-old. My oldest just turned 4. My oldest daughter is 2. My youngest daughter is 1. And my youngest son was just born on December 1st of last year. Yeah, RR, we're gonna get you some encouragement, buddy. I think a couple weeks ago you were looking at some properties. I want to say you had one under contract or it didn't pan out right. I could be wrong. Just closed on my house and now looking for rentals. Awesome. And now you're looking for rentals. Cool. Nice. Yeah, so we're pretty much the same person. We've got the same age kid. Yeah. I think I do my best. What I really enjoy is ever since my son was probably about 2, I take him to all the rental properties with me. I do my best to take him to, a handful of properties per week and include him on, just exactly what it is we're doing, why we're doing it. And even though he's only 4, I mean, he has a pretty solid understanding. He loves going through the distressed properties and like pointing out all of the things that needs to be fixed. So I thought that was probably the easiest way to teach him kind of what we were doing, because it's really easy to look at something and just know that it just doesn't look right. So even if it's as broad as him telling me that we need to fix the kitchen, I'm happy with that, because he's 4. So just exposing him to all the rental property stuff. He has some chores that he does at some of the multifamily properties where we, clean up, sweep the common areas. He has trash grabbers, and he'll go out into the parking lot and pick up all of the trash. He will find the smoke detectors that we need to change the batteries in. And let's see. Yeah, I just try to keep him as involved as possible. Whenever he turns 7, I'm going to do my very best to have him analyze a property, pick one out, and purchase his first rental. I think that'll be really fun. Florida is competitive. Florida is really competitive. Got the itch to build an empire. What's your why behind that? I'd be interested as to like what motivates you. I mean, it sounds good and it feels good. It feels very empowering to say something like that. But I found that if you don't have a good or strong enough why, it's really easy to lose steam, get discouraged, or stop short of what you're actually capable of. All righty, we've made it to the bottom of the comments. RR and JJ are keeping this thing live. I'm in Texas. The counties around me have stopped the foreclosure process. So what do I do now? I mean, foreclosures, that's just one avenue to find properties. You still have tons of others. And just because the foreclosure process has stopped doesn't mean that you don't have people that are on the brink of losing their home, and they know it. So um, I think if you were a wholesaler, if you used a platform like PropStream and you looked at just all the people in pre-foreclosure, or um, I don't know how you could analyze enough data to see who is behind on their mortgage. You probably don't even have access to that. Um, I mean, you could still drive around for dollars, find vacant properties. You could still scan the MLS. You could still network with wholesalers and realtors. I mean, most homeowners, I don't think are going to wait until the foreclosure process starts if they're so horribly behind. So if they're that far behind, I think the wise ones would see the writing on the wall and, like that first question that we talked about, try to go ahead and sell their property or downsize to something that's more manageable. I hope that's what they do. But yeah, I would never rely so much on one source or one way to acquire properties that if it stopped, then our whole business would stop. So definitely It's kind of like that thing that you always hear people talk about, like have 7 streams of income. You should probably have 7 streams of leads for real estate properties as well. And you do. You already have those available to you. You just have to pivot a little bit. I've got one good friend, and he buys tons of properties on Craigslist. I guess that's just the easiest way that people put feelers out if they have a small interest in selling their property. Of course, there's a lot of stuff to sift through there and a lot of room for scams, but still, you've got Craigslist, the MLS, wholesalers, Facebook. Facebook, you can network with both realtors and wholesalers. You can find real estate investing groups in the area, and I mean, just network with all those guys. I have purchased a lot of properties from other investors for a plethora of reasons. Nothing in the pipeline yet. Working on it. Can't wait to get my second deal. I'm looking forward for it, man. Are you gonna try to find another duplex in New York, or what are you gonna do? What's your game plan? You going out of state? The goat. What's up, man? Oh, that was funny. Just because none of you other guys monitor my channel strong enough to figure out what this guy's talking about. He lives out in California, and he made a joke on one of the videos because I often talk about $40,000, $50,000 properties because that is what is here in the Midwest, regardless of whether you're in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan. I mean, there's a lot of $40,000 to $50,000 homes out there. Granted, the market's heating up, but he was just saying, you're talking about these $40,000, $50,000 homes out here in California. You can hardly get a nice toilet for $40,000. Oh man, I couldn't imagine spending $40,000 on a toilet. I know you're exaggerating, but still, that's quite the toilet. Diversify your income. Oh yeah, and I think you've done a really good job of that. I think, from what I can tell. But yeah, man, thanks. Thanks. You just subscribed to the channel recently, and you have been watching tons of videos, so I really appreciate that. And thanks for all the comments on them too. Comments on the videos, I guess YouTube likes that. But I don't think I am going to focus too much on all the YouTube algorithm stuff. I think this channel is a little bit different in that it's like just real world advice. And in order to grow a YouTube channel to get very large, you really have to pander to very specific things. But those specific things that you kind of have to pander to aren't the things that really pique my interest. And I'm not trying to just be a cog in the wheel, because all of the things that you should make videos about is exactly the same thing that like everybody else is talking about. So, hey, come here for real world advice. How do you do virtual wholesaling? I have no idea. I am not a wholesaler. I think there's one YouTube person. Her name is Lily Thompson. She's a wholesaler. PropStream is a phenomenal resource for wholesalers. Let me throw that link. I just became an affiliate for PropStream. And I was when they reached out to me, I kind of wasn't very convinced that I should even talk to these people. But then after getting like a small tour, that's a game changer. PropStream. And this link will also get you like a 7-day free trial. Yeah, that PropStream, I mean, you could, and it's a national thing, so it's not like specific to your market. But I mean, on PropStream, it's been really helpful to me. You can find properties in pre-foreclosure. You can get the owner's email address. You can get the owner's phone number. It kind of gives you all of the tools you need to be a successful wholesaler, or the way that my brother and I are going to use it, or we're just going to use it to start sourcing our own deals and just buy them to add to our rentals. We have, again, no interest in flipping or wholesaling. But I mean, just with a few clicks of a button, you could see how many mortgages are on the property. You can see if they are delinquent in their taxes. You could see who their mortgage is with, what bank. and things that I used to do manually that took me, 30, 45 minutes per property, going back from the clerk of court's website to the county recorder to the county auditor, and just flipping through all those tabs, researching just PDF documents. PropStream has just compiled all into one source. So I found them to be very accurate. And you can also pull your own comps using PropStream. And I think it's an awesome software. I had my hesitations at first, but that link will get you a 7-day free trial. I highly suggest that you do that, because even if you have no intentions of buying properties anytime soon, it would be phenomenal, a great idea just to get familiarize yourself with all of that information that's available to you, because I have a sneaky suspicion that this software, even if you don't know what you're doing, will take away like a few excuses or make finding deals not so unbearable. The Mastermind group is going extraordinarily well. I'm really proud of all the guys in that group. It is taking off a lot faster than I expected it to. The whole reason that I started it originally is I made a video about my 2023 goals, like over the next 3 years. And one of that is I wanted to help 10 people buy 10 properties. And I think I may have set that a little bit low. I think there are about 16 guys in the Mastermind group. There's 2 groups. One meets on Tuesday, one meets on Monday. And in that group, we've got some guys that have like 90 properties that aren't my brother and I. I think the next guy has like 40. And then everybody else, for the most part, they might have a handful or they might not have any. And so far, I think I've been meaning to make a spreadsheet that we can kind of log all of the properties that we have purchased since being in the Mastermind. And I'm not taking credit for any of these guys' work. I mean, they are putting in the time, energy, effort. They're going around trying to get the education and networking. They're doing it all themselves. But I think last time I did the mental math, the guys in there have like 8 properties under contract, which is a really big deal. And one guy already has 2 properties under contract. And previous to the group, he had 0 properties. So I'm really proud of that. Yeah, thank you. Let me know what you think about PropStream. If you think it's as awesome as I think it is, what I need to do is one more video explaining how to find foreclosures using PropStream. I think everyone would benefit from that is interested in buying foreclosures, just because it's so much easier than scrolling through all of the county websites, because none of the county websites talk to each other. Hey, Ryan, I watch your videos and notice you get great insurance rates for your properties. For someone who doesn't have those connections, insurance rates aren't about connections. Let's see here. If you're getting home insurance or insurance on your rental properties, that's a little bit different. So the crazy thing about insurance, I'm not sure where you're at, Devin, but I would say that insurance is regulated on a state-by-state basis. So when I first started my insurance agency, I had high hopes of becoming like the national solution for investors, but there's just no clean way to do it. And all of the programs that are out there at the moment that have the ability to write properties on a national basis, they're either more expensive than what you can find regionally, or there's just tons of gaps in there, and they've made it just so cookie cutter that you're not insuring each individual property appropriately. So, and then there are some solutions on the non-admitted market. I don't want to go on insurance I know too much about it, so I don't want to make this whole conversation or go on like a 30, 45-minute rant about insurance, so I won't try to explain the non-admitted market. But when you go on the non-admitted market, the paperwork just gets really flimsy. So some of the national companies are on the non-admitted market, and it just feels really fake. The documents, the paperwork they provide you just don't seem official, and I really don't like that. Not to say the non-admitted market is wrong by any means. It's just doesn't give me the most amount of comfort. So the insurance rates that I get here in Ohio, there's one very small insurance company, actually two companies that do a phenomenal job with insuring properties here in Ohio, because Ohio specifically has the issue of back in the day when, GM was in Detroit and all the surrounding areas benefited from that. Ohio, it's the Rust Belt, I think is what they call it. So they were booming at one point. So all these massive, beautiful homes were built. Well, now you can buy them for 50 grand or less, but it would cost like $250,000 to rebuild. But the majority of people who spend 50 grand on a house have no interest in insuring it for 250,000. So two small insurance companies that only write in Ohio have found a great way to kind of manage that to where you can still settle it at replacement cost, but you don't have to pay for the 250,000 of replacement cost. So let's say you buy it for 50, you insure it for 75,000. That way you can get, in the event it completely burns down, you have enough money to clean up the debris, and you have your initial capital back that you put into the property. So you're not going to profit like if you insured it for 250,000, but you're also not going to be paying $250,000 worth of premium per year. I hope that was helpful. So, I don't think it was. I don't think I answered your question at all. I just think I went on a rant. Okay, so here's what I would say in a nutshell. Just like if you do all the reading on real estate investing, people advise you to go to local credit unions or like regional banks to get the best deals on rental property financing. And I think the same applies for your insurance. I do not believe that like the State Farms, the Nationwides, or any of these big box national insurance companies are going to be the best fit for your real estate investments. So it would be wise to find the smaller regional or even just state specific insurance companies that are willing to be more flexible with you. And you just have access. Like if you go into one of these small credit unions, you're likely going to, quickly be introduced to like the commercial vice president or the vice president of commercial sales. And it's not too far off from the insurance side. Like I can speak with the vice presidents of these smaller companies if something horrible goes wrong. So it's not like you call into Nationwide or Quicken Loans and get a different person each time you call in. It's more of a relationship based thing. But insurance is still one of those where it's not like an insurance company is willing to write much cheaper insurance for me than anyone else. It's still like every insurance company has to file their premiums on an annual basis for all their products. So it's not like the middle of the year they can decide to dramatically increase their rates or increase their premiums dramatically on one person. So many asterisks with that. I mean, but we're not going to talk about insurance for 30 to 45 minutes. That would bore everyone. Ever plan on buying here in California? No. And I actually plan on never even visiting California. I want nothing to do with California. I was there once. I went to college at Arizona State, and I went to California a few weekends and just did not see the appeal. And I am also one of these individuals that I respect people that love to travel, but that's not me. That's not me. I don't like exploring new places. I don't like doing new things. To reach my goal, I have to go out of state, which I'm currently learning. My area is very expensive. That makes sense. I mean, I know a lot of guys that have done out of state investing very successfully. So my biggest thing would be having a team that you trust is extraordinarily important. Finding people that truly have your best interest. Well, this is the answer I've been looking for. Thank you. Man, that's what I'm talking about. I hope you use my link. How many cash out refinance mortgages can you have at one time? I know the big banks only limit you to about 4 to 10. Oh, Fernando, that's a great question. And that kind of goes along with what I just said about the insurance companies and the credit unions on how regional is better. So there's a huge misconception that often goes around, and it makes sense because if you were just to go into any sort of bank and talk about buying homes, then the answers that you get are likely going to be like this question that you just posed. So Fannie Freddie, they are the federally backed mortgage programs here in the United States of America. I don't know if they go other places or not. I probably shouldn't have said it that way. So Fannie Freddie, they do say that you can only have 10 mortgages at one time, but those are federally backed loans. Now, there are tons of different ways to finance a property apart from Fannie or Freddie. However, Fannie or Freddie, because they're federally backed, federally insured, they provide the lowest rates. So if you hear people talking about 30-year fixed 2%, then they're talking about a Fannie Freddie loan. And those are the ones that you're going to run out of really quickly if you're looking to build a large portfolio of properties. So a lot of people, and what I would recommend, if you have a strong W-2, if you just want to build this on the side, if you don't necessarily have the interest in leaving your job or becoming like a full-time real estate person, and you just want to build a massive amount of wealth on the side, my immediate advice to the majority of people that fit the strong W-2 world that are able to save 25% down payments on properties, I would say work your W-2, figure out how to make more money on your W-2, and then exhaust your 10 or 9, if you own the house that you live in, your 9 Fannie Freddie loans. That way you're going to get the longest terms and the lowest rates. So your ability to have positive cash flow is a lot higher. Now, once you go into these like smaller credit unions, a lot of these banks want to keep mortgages inside of their own portfolio. There are also a bunch of hedge funds, a bunch of mutual funds that want to have mortgage-backed securities inside of their portfolio. Even some life insurance companies inside their surplus fund want to have mortgages because mortgages are safe, because the accountability is there. So if for whatever reason people default, then they have the ability to seize the home or seize the underlying asset. So it's safe. Now, the majority of the portfolio loans that you could get from these credit unions, albeit on the personal or commercial side, they're not going to be 30 years and they're not going to be 2 or 3%. So a lot of our loans are maybe 20 to 25 years with I think most of ours are at like a 4.75% when we refinance with a traditional bank. But those are not via Fannie Freddie. Those are just held inside of that bank. Now, when you start talking about portfolio loans or speaking with hedge funds or going through some sort of company like Lima One, you can have as many mortgages as you want. So my brother and I, we currently have about 85 properties and we have about 85 mortgages. So we own a few outright, but not for long. Whew, another long-winded answer, and I hope that was helpful. 4 is way off, by the way. The number is 10. Fannie Freddie, 10. I think every bank also has their own tolerance of how much they're going to give you. And just for example, like my brother and I, there's not one bank that we go to for refinances or deals. And a lot of times, like almost every local credit union here in Montgomery County, we have a relationship with. Because a lot of these small banks, like one of the smallest banks we work with, they only allow you to have $300,000 of loans with them before you max out what they're willing to do with you. So as soon as you have $300,000, they're not going to do any more business with you. So then you go on to another bank and, they'll do a few loans with you and then they'll, throttle it back and say, no, let's just see how these go for a while. Right. So as much time, energy, and effort as I spend looking for new properties to purchase, my brother spends looking for new banks for us to work with. So it is a constant struggle. to both find properties and find banks that are willing to work with us. Sorry, I did mean insurance for my rentals out there in Cleveland. What are your best sources for getting good rates? Well, since you are in Cleveland, shoot me an email. I might be your best source for getting good rates. I owe you an email. I do. I have not forgot about you. Yes. Yep. It'll be posted. Thanks for wanting to listen again. That makes me happy. Good morning, Luke and Jenny. What fees can you negotiate for in a loan? We don't negotiate often in our loans. What fees can you negotiate? That's a really good question. And that's something that I would talk to my brother about. He would be able to answer this better than I could, but I don't think you're ever going to really find yourself in the position to negotiate. What's that saying? He who has the gold makes the rules. So it's kind of a deal or no deal. Like, we've turned down a lot of loans because either the origination fees were too high. Yeah. I mean, so much of it has so little to do with you. And, even on the origination fees, like, if you cut those down, then the person that's helping you gets paid less. So I'm sure there are some things that you can negotiate, but I'm not a fan of negotiating for the sake of getting a better deal if it means the person that's helping me is going to make less money, because, it's all about long-term relationships, not about getting the best deal all the time. So I guess it makes sense to negotiate if you're not harming the commission rates of the person that's helping you. But if you do that, then you probably shouldn't. Same with like car dealerships. Probably good to negotiate, but to what point? You don't want the guy selling it to only make like $50. What do you think about paying off mortgages in full? I don't think I'd ever do it. I think there's a point in which it makes sense for most people. And this is probably, so one of the things that I love most about real estate investing is it's really about personal preference. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Like, I've got clients that have, or, my mentor, one of my mentors, he's got over 600 homes, and similar to myself, he's got over 600 mortgages, right? And then I have other clients and friends that they have 40 properties and they don't have a mortgage on any of them. It really depends on what your goals are, the lifestyle that you want to live, and your comfort level. So the guy that has over 600 properties, his why, his aspirations, what he wants out of life is drastically different than the guy that has 40 and owns them outright. And the risk tolerance is much different as well. So the guy that has 40 homes, he does not believe in debt of any kind. So consequently, he does all the work himself. He buys all of his properties in cash, and he pretty much only has material costs and the hourly wages of the helpers that he has with him. So it's about personal preference. I think that if you are looking to grow and you're looking to grow quickly, then using leverage and other people's money is probably your best bet. If you are looking just to be able to pay yourself the salary that you're making now, 15 years from now, then perhaps going the slower road and buying properties outright or very conservatively is the route for you. There's no right or wrong. And I would encourage you to never listen to somebody that tries to act like there is a right way or a wrong way to do any sort of real estate investing. And I would even, allow that kind of thought to transcend towards the whole multifamily versus single family. I mean, I get, that's probably the topic that I get most flack about, because I love single family homes and I want nothing to do with multifamilies. I've got a few 4 units, and and a 3-unit and a handful of duplexes. And I honestly don't like them that much. I would get rid of all of them if I could. It's just about personal preference. There's not like you can make more money in multis than you can in single families. It's just, what are the issues that you want to have, and what do you want, your problems to be? If you couldn't be directly involved in teaching your children about real estate and how to make money, what would you do to teach them indirectly? Give them a list of books? I've found that even when I give a list of books to adults, it's not very effective. So I don't think giving a list of books to kids would be very effective either. Indirectly teaching your kids about money. I don't know. I don't think I know how to indirectly teach anyone anything. That's a really good question. I'm definitely going to email you back, and when I do, I'll have a good answer for you on that. Indirectly teach somebody something. I have no idea. What is your goal for number of doors? You talking about this year, next year, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? What do you want to know? Antoine, do you happen to know any good property management companies in Cleveland? I don't know any good property management companies anywhere. So the thing about property management companies, especially here in like low B, C, D areas, is there's just no profit margin in there. I mean, let's say you even charge 10%. I think 10% is the highest you could possibly get away with charging. So, our average rent is $600 a month, maybe $700, probably $700. So 10% of that, that's $70 a month. How much time, energy, or effort can you allocate towards my property for $70 per month? If you are a one-man show, you might be able to squeak out 2 hours, paying yourself $35 an hour, dealing with either me, the property, the resident, or any of like the utilities associated with that property. 2 hours a month. Now, if you have a team of people and you're paying them $20 an hour, well, you have to get some sort of override on it. So now you might be looking at like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours if you are making really thin margins. So then, from my understanding, all of the management companies that I've spoken with, the real money is made in the repairs and maintenance and charging the like 10% kind of override fee on those repairs and maintenance. So now they're not incentivized on keeping your property kind of low profile. Now they're incentivized to make sure that there's always repairs or maintenance that needs to be done. And then I know some people will say, well, you can make money with this business model in property management in low B, C, and D areas. It's just a quantity game. Well, I mean, maybe. That's when the numbers get larger. So let's say you have 200 properties and you're making, $60 per door per month. That's a big number. But now you have 200 properties that you have to care for. Now, how much time do you actually have to allocate towards those properties? And then the more people you hire, the more of those margins you're eating into. So again, the repairs and the maintenance and charging those overrides are what actually allows them to keep their doors open. So the only other way I think the people that do property management better than others are the ones that provide property management as a convenience to their clients, but they have their real money made elsewhere. Like either they're the realtor that sells the properties and gets that commission, or helps the investors build their portfolio and regularly look out for more properties to sell their clients. That eases the burden, the financial burden a little bit. But, at the same time, it could also go on the person that's looking for a property management side, because, you have to be cognizant of the fact, let's say you have a property that's rented for, $500 a month or something, which isn't uncommon for Ohio. Now you have to be cognizant of the fact that your property manager is making $50 a month off of you. So you have to be respectful and not burn up their phone endlessly to try to get like answers. I hope that's helpful and not too mean. Just trying to be realistic about the flow of money and how little the property management company actually gets. How do you find great tenants? I think it's like anything from like a sales perspective. I think it's just sourcing a lot. I mean, have your standards. Like 4 times the income has to be like 4 times the monthly rent. You know, X number credit score. I know some guys, especially here in like the CD areas, they don't put any weight on credit scores, just like past evictions. Maybe some references. I don't allow for any past charges, either misdemeanors or felonies. And then I think it's just a matter of being patient and not throwing a resident in your property just because it's vacant and they applied. I think if you're on the fence about somebody, don't let them in. Do you put your homes under an LLC? Yes. And our CPA and attorney have advised us not to put any more than 10 properties into one LLC. So there's no real reason for that. I think some people, I tried to write a book on this at some point about like the appropriate ways to shelter or protect your assets. We have gone from, because I have clients that have like several hundred properties all in one LLC, all the way to having one. I think the middle of the road is like one property per LLC, but from a bookkeeping thing, that just adds so much labor on like the bookkeeping and the tax side. And then I think the most paranoid of all paranoid people, in the most endearing, loving way possible, have like one LLC per property, one land trust per property, and like the land trust is the deed holder, and then the beneficiary of the land trust is a new LLC per property. And I mean, which one is right? It really just comes down to what your attorney is comfortable with, what your personal preferences are. There's no right or wrong. I think if you have a good understanding of insurance and you appropriately insure all of your properties and have a big commercial umbrella, I think you're probably better off having a massive commercial umbrella than going around being too worried about how many properties you have per LLC. How fast can you get an appraisal from a cash out refinance lender? I read a bunch of info on the web saying it's a 6-month wait after closing, but it seems like this varies from lender to lender. You are a smart guy, Fernando. It does. That comment I made, the very funny one, might I add, about he who has the gold makes the rules. Every bank is different, especially if they're going to keep it in their personal portfolio. Now, if they are selling it to Fannie Freddie, then it's pretty standardized, because Fannie Freddie has this very, very strict guidelines of what they will or will not accept, and the banks have to follow that in order to sell it to them. If they're going to keep it in their personal portfolio, then they kind of make the rules. We work with some banks that don't have any seasoning, and then we work with some banks that have like 18-month seasoning. So it really depends on the lender. You're correct. And seasoning, it doesn't really have anything to do with the appraisal. It's how much time you have owned the property. Are you planning on selling any of your homes anytime soon? No, I'm not. I play to keep. It sounded cooler in my head. Yeah, I don't plan on selling anything. I don't plan on flipping anything. Um, my brother is the real mastermind behind all of this, but we have ran the numbers on multiple occasions. And if Project Firehouse '01, you guys can follow that one. I mean, we bought it for 10 grand. We're putting about 35 into it, and it just appraised for 133,000. We could sell it for let's say 70 or 80 grand profit. That would be a taxable event because we sold the underlying asset. Or we could hold on to it as a rental, receive the monthly cash flow, and do a cash out refinance of 75% of the loan to value. Now, instead of the, 70 to 80 grand that we would get after the fees and the realtor stuff, all of that, let's say we get $40,000 or $50,000 instead, 75% minus what we have into it and all of that. Plus, we have the assets, so we still get to take advantage of the appreciation, the principal pay down, and the monthly cash flow, and the tax benefits, because the cash out refinance part isn't a taxable event. So again, if you need quick capital with no strings attached to it, then sure, selling a home or flipping a house or wholesaling a deal might be a good option. But if you could orchestrate it to where you get to keep the property and do a cash out refinance, you're probably going to be better off in the long term rather than selling it. What is your thought on buying 30,000 single family rental that needs 20 to 30 of renovation for 60 grand ARV? I wouldn't do it at all. Asterisk though. Let me read the rest of this. Long-term cash flow rental, rent it in the 650, 750 range. Kicker is it's a low income, higher crime area. So I've done my best to not purchase any properties that I wouldn't live in myself. Now, my standards are pretty low, but I wouldn't be down to live in a high crime area. I'm not trying to have be all asleep and bullets come flying through my house. It's always so scary and so sad. When I was in law enforcement, I responded to a lot of those. Fortunately, I never responded to one where the bullets entered the home and hurt anybody, but still, some of them came very close. And I'd be livid if I had my kids in the house and a drive-by happened and bullets went through their home. I would not be a happy camper. So I would stay away from higher crime areas unless you have the intention of buying all of the properties in that high crime area. And turning it into a not high crime area. But that's a lifelong task. If you are interested in doing something like that, then I highly recommend that you read more about a fellow named Donald Brin. And it's kind of not the same thing, but he is the richest real estate billionaire in the U.S. And over his 50-year career, he has not done a single real estate transaction outside of Orange County, California. So that's very inspiring to me. Pretty cool. But as far as the numbers that you threw out there go, if the house, you're buying it for 30 grand and you need to put 20 to 30 grand into it, and it's only going to be worth 60 grand, I wouldn't do that because it's probably going to cost more than 20 to 30 grand. And it's going to take a really long time for you to do 20 to 30 grand worth of work. So you're going to have all of those holding costs as well. Now, there has to be an appropriate risk reward factor into this. And if you buy it for 30 and you have to put 30,000 into it, let's say that 30,000 even includes all of your holding costs, you would have $0 worth of equity. So you got paid nothing for all the time, energy, and effort that you spent orchestrating the contractors and making sure that everything was done appropriately. That's sad. Not to mention, when you go to refinance, you are only going to be able to pull out 75% of your cash, not 100. My brother and I, and again, as the market gets hotter, and depending on the market, it might not be possible for you to do it, but we do our best to never have any of our own money in any of the properties that we have. And I can proudly say that at this point, in all of our 85 properties, we don't have any of our own money in any of these deals anymore. So the money that we initially put in, we have since taken out. So I think we started with like 140 grand. And now we have that 140 grand. It's not inside of any of these properties. So you have to have some incentive for doing $20,000 to $30,000 worth of work to this property. And you should probably, if you are doing this work, then you should have the ability to pull all of your money out, because you would have, 25 grand worth of equity on top. I don't have an issue with the cash flow or that rental range. That's fine, especially if it's here in the Midwest. I mean, that's probably what you would expect. But if I were to do this deal, I would go to whoever's selling it and I would say, this is how much work it needs. It's priced close, but I couldn't justify paying any more than $15,000 for it. That way, at the end, after all the work, there's some room for error, because you're going to immediately be in the negatives if you find something unexpected, and now you have to put 40 grand of rehab into it rather than 30. Now, last little asterisk to this. If there are no other deals on the market whatsoever, and you have the cash, I would probably do it. Not purposefully negating everything that I just said previously, but I'm not a fan of sitting on the sidelines, and I'm not a fan of not acquiring properties as you have the ability to do it. So if you have been very patient, if you have been very diligent in looking for anything else, and if nothing else is around, then I would probably do it. But I would not be happy about it. And I would tell everybody I ever talked to that this was just a base hit. Because at the end of the day, that's what building a single family home portfolio is all about. Just a bunch of base hits. And if you stay diligent in acquiring properties, sure, you're not going to have a whole portfolio of these properties with zero equity in it, but it wouldn't be too bad to have a couple. We're going to find your email, Ryan at insuredbyingram.com. That is my insurance email address. Ryan at insuredbyingram.com. IngramInsurance.com was already taken. What is your goals for doors on a yearly basis? Last year, we started the year with 38 and we ended with 85. Currently, we're at 85. We want to be to 120 by the end of June. And then I think we're going to try to hit 180 by the end of the year. A waste of time. That's what a land trust is. A land trust is a sheet of paper that is filed somewhere. It's just, people use it for anonymity's sake. So let's say that you own 100 properties. Okay. All right. I'm going to do my best to explain this within like 5 minutes, because at the end of the day, I don't know what I'm talking about. Let me put my disclaimer up here. There we go. Look at that. Real fancy. I don't know what I'm talking about. So in theory, if you own a property and somebody had grounds to sue you, let's say they slip and fell and they were kind of sort of hurt, but not really, but they found an attorney or an attorney found them. They go into the auditor's website, they type in your name, and like 80 properties, 90 properties, however many properties pop up on the auditor's website. Well, that attorney is going to say, okay, this fellow's got some deep pockets. Let's go ahead and sue him. However, if you have the property deeded to a land trust, and a land trust is just a sheet of paper, it's very easy to file. There's like very, very few regulations on them. I don't know what they are, but I know that I have one client that each time they buy a new property, a new land trust is formed. Now, the beneficiary of the land trust is the only important part, but that's not public record. The beneficiary of the land trust, and like the attorney couldn't see it if he went to the auditor's website. So the beneficiary of the land trust would be, whatever LLC you wanted it to be. So the land trust doesn't collect money. The land trust doesn't have expenses. The land trust has nothing to do with it other than hold the deed of that property. Now, if you have a different land trust for each property, you go onto the auditor's website, type in that land trust name, only that one property is going to come up. So it's just for anonymity. There's no substance to a land trust other than the sheet of paper that it's written on. The beneficiary of the land trust is really the only thing that matters. But again, that's not quite public record. House is in Oklahoma. Nice. I appreciate you for thinking that I'm wise. That's very important to me as my wisdom Scrabble tiles. Seek wisdom is kind of the thing that I try to live my life on. What does your team consist of? Since it fell into the lap from a family member, I'd be more inclined to do it. If nothing else, just to help them out of the pickle, whatever pickle it is that they're in. Helping people is really important to me too. What does your team consist of? I have a phenomenal CPA. I have 3 contractor crews that I regularly keep busy. None of them are exclusive to me, though. They can accept more work elsewhere if they would like to. I have one employee, and she is phenomenal. She takes a lot of workload off. And then let's see here. I got my brother. My brother's, like I said, he's the most powerful asset to this. My brother and I are 50-50 in almost everything we do. And then I have good relationships with like plumbers, electricians. I have only one electrician that I use, and I've only got one HVAC person that I use. And I am a huge fan. Just the way that I prefer to build things is I do not shop around. Once I find someone, I think their prices are fair. And once I build a relationship with them, when I have a job that I need to get done, I call that one person. I don't get bids over and over again for every little job. I don't like operating that way. I know some people do it very well and probably save more money than I do. But again, I prefer to have strong relationships with all the vendors that I use. Wife and I are buying our first duplex, FHA 203K, as soon as possible, getting started. As soon as possible, can start getting, as soon as people, man, these glasses, I'm telling you, as soon as people can start getting evicted again, I promise I can read. Plan on cashing out, refi after repairs, free duplex. I do flooring, not really a question. Nice. No, yeah, Fernando, you're on it. I knew I was impressed with you, buddy. I think that's a phenomenal idea. I don't know many people that have taken advantage of the FHA 203K. So definitely keep me updated. I'm looking forward to hearing about your successes on that, and definitely want to hear about your whole experience, start to finish. For those of you that aren't familiar, FHA 203K loans are available to people. I've most commonly seen them used on homes that were foreclosed on from federally backed loans. So let's say you take out a Fannie Freddie loan, you get foreclosed on. Then now the government owns the house. It's a HUD home, and then because it's a HUD home, FHA already owns it. So then they'll give you a 203K loan, which is enough money to both purchase the house and to rehab the house. Only caveat is you have to live there. So it's not quite investor friendly unless you do exactly what Fernando is doing, in which case you probably can't beat it. So that's awesome, man. Great thinking, great working, and let me know how that goes. I'm really looking forward to hearing about it. Man, you guys ran out of steam, or maybe I ran out of steam. I think we're about to hit the bottom of the comment section. Don't let me do that, because then I'd be inclined to leave. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, man. This fourth kid that we have had, speaking of crew, has been the hardest so far. So my oldest is 4. We've got 4, 2, 1, and then as of December 1st. So he's 5 weeks old? Man, he's definitely been the most difficult. And, most people don't have kids as quickly as we have had them. But our older 3, it's not like they are independent. They're still very much so dependent, and they still don't necessarily, it would be unfair to expect them to be able to entertain themselves. So throw a colicky baby in the mix, and our lives have been kind of turned upside down. For most of our kids, my wife's been able to hold it down, and I have been able to continue work as normal. But on this one, no way. Since our latest baby was born, I think I have worked maybe 20 to 30% of what I normally do. It's been tough on the psyche. I'm wired to work, as are all men, in my view. All right. Any questions you guys got? Because I'm down to answer them. Very selfishly, I'll plug myself here for a moment. Very selfishly, if you guys think that this channel is of any value, by all means, share it with somebody that you think would have interest in this type of content as well. Every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard, I do my best to get on here and answer all of the questions that you wonderful people have. Now, MH, are you Magic? Are you Magic Harmon? I probably shouldn't have said that since you abbreviated your name here. But if that's you, buddy, thanks, man. Wow. Great, you are still online live. Man, I'll tell you what, I'm having a tough time in this chair, but we're getting through it. This is the most fidgety I may have ever been. Do you invest remotely or only within 30-minute drive of your home? That's a good question. I don't think all the properties are within a 30-minute drive from my house. I could be wrong. We don't have any properties in any areas that I couldn't drive to, and I don't think I'd be comfortable with that. Let's say I were to buy some properties in Cleveland or another city. I mean, I think things get a lot easier at the 10 property mark. So like I've had a few people that I've met that have like 2 properties in Florida, 2 properties in Oklahoma, 2 properties in Kansas, a whole bunch of weird stuff like that. And I don't think I'm down for that. I don't think that's a good idea, because I have noticed that since I have so many properties in one area, for the most part, a 30-minute drive radius is probably a good idea. Like that's probably true for our portfolio. Whenever we, like the HVAC, the electrician, all those things that I just mentioned, if we need something, they kind of bump us up to the top of the list. And, they don't really overcharge us because they know that we're going to give them more work in the future. So it's a really good system. And it's not something that you would be able to achieve if you had, just a couple of properties in a couple different places. So on the off chance that the Dayton market dries up and that I start investing everywhere, then I would race to get to 10 properties in that new area. I don't think you should have less than 10 properties in any given market. I think once you decide that the market is good, you should get to 10 as quickly as possible. That's when I think 10 is a very comfortable number where you can start playing off the law of large numbers or the law of averages. And if one of the properties has an issue, it could be subsidized from the cash flow of the other 9. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, man. I'm really happy we met. I'll tell you what, there are a rapidly growing handful of people that, when I started this YouTube channel in April of last year, it was truly just because the lockdown happened and I got, all of my, because I'm in insurance and real estate. All I did all day was meet people and talk. And then all of a sudden I couldn't do that. I was just stuck in my office. So I just started recording myself talking. I thought YouTube was going to be more of like a two-way street, but really it's just, for the most part, me talking at this camera and assuming that people are watching the videos, but the feedback loop is massive. All that to say, that's why I'm a huge fan of these live streams when I actually get to interact a little bit more. But I did not expect to meet so many awesome people. And there's a handful of people, again, rapidly growing, that made this entire YouTube effort worthwhile. Like I'm so happy to know you guys. You make me super pumped. Hey, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your question. Will this be on again later so we can listen to it again? Yes, it will. Yeah, all the live streams are on the channel. And the benefit about watching it back is you can put me on 2x. You can listen to me, 2 times the normal speed, which is probably more of a comfortable talking pace. I talk really slow. What do you do when the appraisal comes back significantly lower than contracted? Man, cry. That's what we told. Some of the appraisals in the 36 property refinance that we did came back significantly lower. Like we've got one property that any day of the week, I'm confident in my ability to sell it for, I wanted to say 90 grand and then I almost wanted to say 100 grand. But let me dial it back. Let me say we could sell it immediately for 80 grand. Just in the neighborhood that it's in, the size. It's like a 5-bedroom home. It's one of the biggest that we have. And it's one of the only ones that we have that are rented for over $1,000 a month. It came back at 48,000. Absurd. We were told by this specific lender, again, he who has the gold makes the rules. So we cannot contest the appraisal. The appraisal is set in stone. But that was the one that was most significantly off. A few others were pretty far off, but at the same time, I think the mindset that I have is just over the next 20, 30 years, it's going to make very little difference. In the short term, it was painful, but 30 years from now, really doesn't matter. Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon. Makes a lot of sense. Law of averages is a great concept. And I think so too. I appreciate it. All right. My partner and I are finding the biggest constraint to growth for us is finding deals. We generally target C, B type neighborhoods, ARVs around 130. Any tips on growing the funnel? Man, I think being as vocal as you possibly can is probably the answer. I mean, building relationships with wholesalers, with realtors. So each time I've purchased a property, I've contacted the listing agent. Well, like 95% of the time, I contact the listing agent and I do my best during that process to become friends with this listing agent, to let them know exactly the type of deals that I want to purchase. And, I do my best to keep in touch with them and constantly check in to see if they have any listings, because a lot of these realtors would prefer to sell a property without listing it if they have the opportunity to do so. So I keep in touch with realtors. I encourage any and all wholesalers, even though wholesalers generally tend to be, if 20 reach out to you, one is worthwhile. And to no fault of their own. It's a massive world of knowledge to understand, and it's like an uphill battle. So, and then other investors as well. Other investors, I've purchased a lot of property from other investors. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of think that my strategy inadvertently was just to talk about real estate investing as much as possible. So every chance I get in every conversation with everyone, I try to bring up real estate investing. We've purchased some properties from contractors, family members. We have purchased some properties from uh, just friends that have this vague understanding that I am interested in real estate investing, and then they have a friend that wants to sell a house. Sometimes that guy encourages them to talk to me first. So I don't think there's any one good way. One of my mentors, his name is Rich Allen. He's a business coach, and his website is Tour de Profit, kind of like Tour de France, but instead of France, it's profit. And he advocates for everyone to have at least seven like forms of lead generation. And if you have more than that, great. But if you have seven, then you are likely going to have a sustainable business model. And seven forms of lead generation is kind of the entry point, and then you get like an A plus if you can have those seven lead generation sources automated. Now, as far as real estate investing goes, I don't really know how to automate those unless you were to do like direct mail, set up like a landing page and pay for a bunch of ads. I don't really know. I don't know how to do that. That's almost like the wholesaling realm. But what I've noticed lately are the big people. I think like Max Maxwell. I think what he does is, I know he has his own rental portfolio, but he also just does tons of wholesaling and just tons of lead generation through things like PropStream. And oh, Brennan, that might be a good one for you. I put the link in here. Let me see if I can put the link there. PropStream. I did not believe in this thing whenever I first heard about it, but it makes everything so easy. So the areas that you like to invest in, you can just you can have like an aerial view, and you can just click on any of the parcels and you can get all the information about it. How long it's been owned, if there's a mortgage on it, if there are any liens associated with the property. You can find pre-foreclosures in any area. It's kind of a game changer. I mean, we have used it a lot, and we tried to use it. We use it actually very effectively. Like I said, that from 37's question, that one property that appraised for 48 grand, but I'm confident it was worth anywhere between 80 and 100. We were able to pull up real comps in the matter of like 5 minutes that kind of proved our point to the fact that it was worth like over 100. So I don't know. I would say try to get 7 lead generation sources. And if you figure out a way to automate those, then I will pay you a hefty consultant fee whenever you figure that out. But definitely check out that one thing, PropStream, and let me know what you think about it. What do you think about this? Getting a VA loan refi with regular bank and repeating this step over and over? I think that's phenomenal. I think I've got a good friend who we just did this for him. He bought a 4-unit with a VA loan. He actually at the closing table got $70 back. So he got paid $70 to buy a 4-unit. His living expenses beforehand were $650 a month for rent. And now that 4-unit, each of the units are rented out for $650. So he lives in one of the units and he's collecting, what is that? $650 times 3. Brain don't like work. $1,950 a month. I think after all expenses, I think he nets like $1,200 a month from this. And it was a VA loan, so he has no money out of pocket. So you can have 2 VA loans at one time. So I think the only caveat to the VA loans is you have to live there at least 1 year, and you can never have more than 2. So I think our loose plan is for after 12 months from now, We buy another 4-unit with his other VA loan that's available to him. And I know you have to provide some sort of justification as to why you're doing that. But I think in his case, it's going to be pretty easy because I love the area that his 4-unit is in, but the majority of the population would be like, oof, it might be a rough neighborhood. So if he buys one in not so rough of a neighborhood, it would be easy to justify and say, hey, this area will be better for whatever reason. And then buy another 4-unit. Again, no money down. But now he's stuck because he's maxed out his 2 VA loans that are available to him. So now he has to either wait until he has enough equity, because again, he's not putting any money down. Most investment properties, when you refinance, you need to have 75% or 25% down payment. So either these properties are going to have to appraise for higher so that his loan amount is only 75% of the value, or he's going to have to come out of pocket and pay down the loan amount to the point where another bank will take it over. Or alternatively, he just keep those in the VA loans, and from there on out, just start using conventional mortgages. And I mean, I think if you are young, I think if you do not have kids, I think if you have a either girlfriend or spouse that are down with moving very often, I think while you are young and have very little responsibilities, you should take advantage of that type of system as frequently as possible. You should buy a house with as little money as possible, or buy a multifamily with as little money possible, rent out all the units, and just regularly, kind of rinse and repeat as much as possible. I think that is probably the best advice that I would give somebody in like their 20s, or someone in their 30s or 40s that just aren't married. Dude, you're the best, man. I really appreciate that. You're too good to me, man. Rich Allen is amazing. Had the astounding pleasure of meeting him for lunch. Love how he associated everything to a bicycle. He does. I mean, you should check him out. Everybody on this call should go check out Rich Allen. He definitely changed my life. I wouldn't have an insurance agency if it were not for that man. And yeah, he's changed my life in more ways than one. PropStream. Yeah, I think PropStream is phenomenal. Yeah, Brennan, I really appreciate you being on here, man. You can also geolocate on PropStream while driving. Yes, they have an app that you can use as well. And if you find a property, you can kind of tag it. Now, they say that they are not a driving for dollars app, but they have a few features that make it a little bit easier to take notes on properties while you're driving around, I suppose. I don't know. Your content and beard are phenomenal. Oh, thanks, man. Keep up the good work. I really appreciate that. What's the best lender for first-time home buyers? Credit union or private company or bank? Man, I don't think there's a real good answer to that. I think the best one is the one that's willing to work with you, that will give you the lowest interest rate and the lowest origination fees. So I think here in Ohio, I think there's a bank called Union Savings. They've been advertising for a long time that they're only charging $250 of closing costs. So that might be helpful. If you're not in Ohio, then I would just check. I would, and I would just figure out. I mean, for the most part, mortgages are almost like commodities. It's just kind of like milk. There's a few variations, but not really. So for a first-time home buyer, I think more important than the terms, if you're not too confident in what you're doing, is somebody that is nice enough to kind of slow down and walk you through the whole process. So, and then, I mean, there are so many programs out there. And then I also know that even apart from the banks, there are programs that are like nonprofits that will either, if you qualify for one of their programs, then they will like pay for your down payment. or something like that. So I would do some research in that too, to see if you can qualify for any of these community programs that will have some sort of down payment assistance for you. Indeed. All right. Once again, we are at the end of the comments. So if you want to ask a few more questions, I'll answer a few more questions. I want to say thanks again, man. That means a lot to me. I have tons of fun doing this. Like I said, I prefer the live streams over like making just the stagnant videos. I know there's a time and place for both, but it's a lot easier to actually answer people's questions in a manner where they can immediately go from this live stream to taking action, just to be one step closer to drastically improving your life or financial position. Absolutely. Do you send out yellow letter mailers? Not yet. Not yet. I think no, I don't do that. I know a lot of people have success with that. I'm not opposed to it. And it's not the mailing out letters that would be the hardest part. It would be fielding all of the phone calls that come from that. So what I'm thinking about doing is, my preference is working with wholesalers or people that like sending out these yellow letters. So I think I would like to start paying people, just like fees for finding properties and then bringing them my way. So it appeals more so to me, rather than sending out letters, to finding a handful of people that really want to, work diligently and saying, hey, for each deal you find and the numbers make sense, I'll give you $1,000 or $2,000 per property. I'm making stuff up at the moment, so I'm just saying that is something that would appeal to me a lot. Am I free to ask any real estate related question, or is there a certain topic? Hey, man, welcome, Brandon. Any question you have? I'm not saying I know the answer to them, but I'll most certainly ponder it and do the best. I should clarify, in Ohio. And if it's that one that you mentioned, I am out. Oh, thanks, Tammy. I appreciate that. Yeah, go for it. You can ask anything. I like the way that you posed that. That makes me sound like one of those fortune teller people. There was some museum that I went to where it was like a popcorn machine, but instead of the popcorn thing, it was the little crystal ball lady all dressed up. It was creepy. Folks say credit unions give the lowest rates over banks. Your thoughts? I don't disagree with that, but at the same time, the Federal Reserve is the one that determines rates. So it just depends on how high. So like the rate that the Federal Reserve creates is called prime. So these credit unions or these other banks generally add something to prime. So prime plus 2, let's say prime's 2%. Bank of America might be doing prime plus 2, so it'll be 4%. Credit union might be doing prime plus 1.5, which would be 3.5%. Really doesn't matter, but I don't think whether they're a credit union or not has much to do with how much they decide to charge. It really just depends on. Now, I'm speaking a little bit out of line here because I don't really know much about banks or how they work, but insurance companies, they adjust their premiums based on their appetite, is what they call it. So let's say they want to write insurance for a bunch of investment properties, then they will lower their premiums in that one. Same as if they decide that they do not want to write any car dealerships anymore, then they will drastically increase their premiums associated with car dealerships. And I've found it, like our main bank that we use for all of our banking, they have recently uh, decided that they don't really want to take on any more investment properties, so they raised their rates. So it's almost like this constant cycle of figuring out who wants to uh, be involved heavily in investment properties right now. Because these banks, you kind of have to think they have their own portfolios that they have to keep balanced. So let's say they take an interest in car dealerships, but then they realize that 50% of their portfolio is for loans for car dealerships. So now they're vulnerable because if anything happens to the car industry, then they're going to be a little bit out of luck. Same as if, 60% of their book is investment properties, then they're going to want to fix that. So it's just this constant ebb and flow of who is hungry to take more investment properties into their portfolio, which is why I said earlier that as fervently as I'm looking for rental properties, my brother is looking for banks that are wanting to add investment properties to their portfolio. Guru, I don't know about that. Need to run. Thanks again. Yeah, I should probably run too, but I just have so much fun with all of this. Navy Federal versus Wells Fargo. I don't know. I mean, it really just depends. Probably like what time of the year. Would going for your real estate license at the same time as trying to invest in foreclosed property be advantageous in any way? If so, how, in your opinion? Oh, thanks for this, man. Thanks for posing this question in such an academic format. I don't have any interest personally in having my real estate license. So, and then very seldom, at least here, have I met. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's no right or wrong on this. Let's see here. The benefits of having your real estate license would be you get to save 3% on your fees each time you buy a property because you are your own agent. Another pro would be you can let yourself into the homes. So you can just go on the MLS and get the lockbox code and help yourself set up your own showing. The cons would be you are now subject to all the rules and regulations that whatever board of realtors you are going to be a part of. I think you have to have all sorts of disclosures if you ever want to like sell a property. And the cons probably, if I educated myself, wouldn't be as bad as I'm making them out to be. They might not even fall in the cons category. But again, like I said earlier, I kind of use, whenever I purchase a property, I reach out to the listing agent. That way they get both sides of the commission. So rather than 3%, they get 6%. And I try to make friends with them so that if they ever find any properties that I would be interested in the future, I would be one of the first people they think about, which has done pretty well for me. So I also don't mind not being able to look at properties on the MLS by myself. You as well. You as well. As a first-time home buyer, should I get a rental property and build credit, our forever home, build credit, then a rental property? Totally up to you. Totally up to you. I don't really believe in forever homes. I don't know how old you are. I don't know where you live. I don't know what you want your lifestyle to be. I don't know your overarching why of your life. But for me, I think people put a little bit too much emphasis on forever homes because circumstances can change so rapidly. But I do know that the more rental properties you have, the more cash flow you have coming in, the more wealth you're building over the long term. So when my wife and I moved up to Ohio, we were living in a house that we built on like 17 acres, and our mortgage was like $1,400 or $1,500 a month. And when we moved here, because that mortgage payment is what was not allowing my wife to be a stay-at-home mom. So we kind of turned things on our head. We bought a house for like 60 grand. Our mortgage payment then turned out to be like $400 a month or something along those lines. So at that point, I told myself that we weren't going to buy a larger home because that was like a 700 square foot house. And at the time we had when we moved out, we had 3 kids living in a 700 square foot house. It was tight. Like when our families came and visited, pretty much everyone had to sit on the floor. I've even got a few pictures of like my parents came up for Thanksgiving, and we were doing Thanksgiving on like the living room floor, just because we didn't have enough table space, countertop space, or seating throughout the entire house to accommodate anyone. So it was fun. It made good memories. But I told myself the entire time that I lived there that I wasn't going to buy a better house for us to live in until we had at least 20 rental properties. Now I get that that's an aggressive goal and probably not doable in all markets, but that's where I set the sights. But then we got to 20 rental properties, and I realized that it wasn't really enough. So ultimately, I think when we moved out, we had close to 40 rentals. So we moved in like January of last year, and we had 38 properties when we started the year last year. So probably, right around 38, 40 properties. So now, our rental property pays for our mortgage payment. So there's that. So I technically am kind of living for free in a sense. I hope that helps. I hope that was very helpful. Yeah, of course. I hope that was kind of helpful. I mean, I don't know. You don't need a real estate license to invest. That's for sure. And the majority of investors that I know don't have their real estate license. But I also know a few investors that have their real estate license, and they also run their own like real estate team. So I don't know. I think it's, at the end of the day, I think it's, where do you want to put your energy and effort? Oh, I appreciate it. Nice. Washington, D.C. That's a really expensive market. Let's see. I know sometimes people say that I miss things. Let me go through here real quick. You probably have to go a couple hours north before you can get to something that's reasonable to invest in. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we are good. All right, I will hang around for a few more seconds to see if there are any questions. And other than that, if you wouldn't mind doing me a favor and checking out PropStream, I'm going to post that again, just because I'm a huge believer of this, and also the affiliate thing. But again, I'm using this very regularly, pretty much on a daily basis now, to help us build our portfolio, run comps to figure out, and just to make sure that, comps are still what we think they are. Properties are still what they should be, and to find a bunch of deals. Man, when we started this live stream, I had 5,984 subscribers, and now we're at 5,995. It would be pretty cool to pass 6,000 while we're on this live stream. So, hey, like I said earlier, I know this is kind of self-serving, but hey, if you found that this channel is of any benefit to you, feel free to share it with someone that you think might benefit from it. I would greatly appreciate that. Let's see. Fear is holding me back. How can you lose this fear and invest in a rental property? That's a great question, man. I think fear is probably what's holding everyone back. There's a phenomenal book out there. It's called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And if you ever suffer from any type of fear or uncertainty, I would highly recommend that you start there. I know that book has been life changing for a lot of people. I just had one of my good friends read it, and he said that he thinks it's just a mandatory read for anyone. Yeah, I normally have a copy of that book pretty close by, but it's called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Here's what I do whenever I am fearful of something. And this is taken from the great and ancient Stoic philosophy. Now, I'm a Christian, but there's still phenomenal things to be found in secular philosophy as well. And I think Stoicism is one of the coolest things that you could possibly do. And I think it's pretty timeless. So, Stoicism is all about you're fearful. That's healthy. You shouldn't try to get rid of the fear. What you should try to do, though, is kind of mitigate it or flesh it out. And when I say flesh it out, I mean go ahead, do some forward thinking, figure out like what exactly makes you fearful. What is the worst case scenario that could possibly happen? And then try to make peace best you can with that worst possible scenario. So, I mean, fortunately, real estate is one of these things that has been around as long as we've been existing on this world, right? So, especially, I mean, rental property aspects. Like my brother and I, this is one thing that I constantly think back to is my brother and I have a duplex that has been around since the 1800s. It was the late 1800s, but still, it has been a cash flowing property for longer than most businesses have been around. So it's really powerful. And real estate in and of itself is like this franchise model. It's not like you're going out and creating something that hasn't already been done. And one of the things that I often tell people is under no circumstances attempt to recreate the wheel. Just go ahead, figure out what you need and start reaching out to people that can help you, because real estate investing, whether it's HVAC, property management, electrical, plumbing, I mean, there are entire industries built around facilitating the real estate investing world. So it's not like you're alone. It's not like, it's not like it's impossible. And, there's no reason for you to try to recreate something. It's just going to be the first time that you've done it. So what's the worst that could happen with this one rental property that you purchase? It be set on fire? Well, insurance can handle that, right? And then all the other things, if you do a solid inspection report, then the roof should be good. You should get an inspection on that. The electrical, that should be good. You should be able to get pretty close to like exactly when all of the items on the home were updated. And another one of the coolest things that I think about real estate investing is in all of the worst case scenarios, you just have to spend more money than you wanted to, and you make less money than you thought you would. But every issue has a price, and everything can be fixed. So let's say you have an older roof. Well, now you just need to budget for putting a new roof on. Now, the things that would not fit in this is if you were to be like sued or something like that. But again, if you have a good insurance policy, your insurance is going to take care of you. And especially regarding like the liability limits, I would say just do your very best to have your liability limits be higher than your net worth, and you should be good. And once you get worth over $1 million, then carry a large commercial umbrella greater than your net worth. So that stops being applicable once you're worth more than like 5 million. But that would be my advice. Just go ahead, imagine the worst case scenario, and just play out that worst case scenario on paper. And another cool thing, especially as it pertains to real estate investing, is let's say if a few negative things happen in a row, I mean, you could always sell it. And if you do real estate investing right, then you can sell it for the amount of money that you purchase it for and the amount of money that you put into it. The only time that that doesn't apply is if you over improve a property. So just don't go spending, $20,000 on the kitchen in a $5,000 kitchen neighborhood, and you should be good. I hope that was helpful. I've been scared to purchase property because of the risk and lack of credit, but I am ready to take that chance, but very clueless on how to start beside finding a lender that has the best rate. Lack of credit. I mean, I did a video about credit scores because I recently really messed up my credit score because I have no idea what went into a credit score. But now I do. So now I know, and I'll never make those mistakes again. Now, once you mess up your credit, for the most part, it's kind of a waiting game until things fall off your credit. But there are a few things that you can do to raise your score pretty quickly. But once you understand what goes into a credit score, you kind of don't have any excuse to have a low credit score ever again until after those negative things that you did kind of fall off. And then the risk, I don't know about the risk. This is one of those things that, again, personal preference, but I would go so far as to say, at this point in my life, I think it is more risky to not be involved in real estate than it is to be involved. But again, I guess you're right. Going back to what I said earlier, the law of large numbers or the law of averages, having 0 to 10 properties, I would find to be extraordinarily risky because you are at some point, like when my brother and I had like 8 and 9 properties or in fewer. At the end of every month, we had a very painful conversation where we had to figure out how much we each need to put into the business to keep it alive for another day. Now, fortunately, like once we passed that 10 threshold, we started realizing that at the end of every month, there was sufficient cash flow to take care of any of the repairs or maintenance items that needed to be taken care of. So that's why I am an advocate of saying you should always have and shoot to get more than 10 rental properties as quickly as possible. But I'm not saying that as a way to deter people from buying rental properties when they only have the ability to have 1 or 2. I think you should have 1 or 2 rental properties rather than 0. But I'm just trying to be realistic. And if you do all your numbers and you see that at the end of every month you have $300 of cash flow left or whatever it is, I don't want you to look at that number and actually expect you or to have the expectation of putting $300 in your pocket at the end of every month, because something is going to go wrong, albeit little or large, that you are going to have to pay for. So if you have 2 rental properties, you're still getting the appreciation, the principal pay down. You might be getting a little bit of the cash flow, but for the most part, it's pretty well impossible to, with 1 or 2 properties, have enough money or make enough money for you to sustain all of the things needed from that property. So I have a capital expense worksheet that I would love for you guys to take a look at. Let's see if I can find it real quick. And this CapEx kind of explains that, because when I was first starting, very similarly, I was very paranoid about being conservative. I didn't like the risk, but at the end of the day, so I wanted to calculate because I was coming, right off the Dave Ramsey train. So I wanted to be overly conservative. So I wanted to take absolutely all of the components that make up a house and figure out its lifespan and its cost to replace, and then figure out how much money I need to set aside per month in order to take care of that. And that's when I realized that that number is astronomical. And with owning just a few rental properties, you can't possibly set aside enough money to take care of all of those things. And an easy analogy, it's probably just because I'm in insurance, is thinking about providing insurance on a car, right? Like if an insurance company only had 1 car that they were providing insurance for, you could not possibly collect enough premium on a monthly basis from 1 person for that 1 car to take care of all of the things that could potentially go wrong with that car. So if it got into a wreck, and and it costs $50,000 to replace the car, you would have to charge somebody, what, $4,000 a month in premium to prepare for that. Nobody's going to pay $4,000 a month to insure their car, right? So it's the law of averages. So if we write insurance on enough cars, then the law of averages says that more things are going to go right than they're going to go wrong. So all of the people's premiums go to pay that one wreck. I hope that makes sense. I put the link to the spreadsheet in that live chat. How many hard inquiries should be invested when looking? Okay, so as soon as you start getting into real estate investing, I think hard inquiries is really what tears people up, and a high credit utilization, and like the age of accounts. So I heard from one lender who told me that 800 is the phenomenal score for somebody that's not a real estate investor. And once you become a real estate investor, 700 becomes like the new, if you're 700 or greater and you're a real estate investor, then that's a phenomenal score. Just because the number of inquiries, because we're always looking for financing, the age of your credit will constantly just get younger and younger the more loans you take out. And then the utilization rate, just because investors have a tendency to get pretty creative. So let's say you don't have an appropriate amount of reserves, but one of your properties needs a new roof. Well, the first thing you're probably going to do is slap it on a credit card and ease the pain a little bit. Thank you for your advice. I will read the book. FYI, I found it on YouTube as an audiobook. Now that's scary. Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap. I guess go for it. That's really solid. But I have no idea how Gay Hendricks is getting paid for that. Should I start real estate investing in New York or out of state? Totally up to you. That's a personal preference kind of question. I've heard that investing in New York is really expensive. I moved to Ohio from North Carolina, and one of the deciding factors in that is in North Carolina, whenever I left, I was living in the Raleigh-Durham area. And when I first moved to the Raleigh-Durham area, you could buy any of the homes for $5 or $10 grand. Now they weren't the best of neighborhoods. So let me say that you could buy any home in East Durham for $5 or $10 grand. And then whenever I left, you couldn't even buy one of the condemned homes for less than $100 grand. So the market shifted a lot. And say what you will about Grant Cardone, but Grant Cardone is really the reason that I decided to pull the trigger and move from New York to Ohio, just because that's where the opportunity was for me. Now, where I was, I didn't have nearly as much opportunity going from nothing, trying to be something. But here in Ohio, where the prices, our first properties, our first property was a duplex. We bought it for 35 grand. Our property after that, we bought it for $28,000. Now we did the duplex in cash, and the next property, $28,000. We put a $7,000 down payment, and we had a $21,000 mortgage. Now that property, we bought it early 2019, and that property just appraised for $56,000. So effectively, the value of that house doubled, and we only had to put $7,000 down. Our mortgage payment is $112 a month on that property, and it is rented out for $770. So it's a phenomenal investment. But I didn't have that available to me in North Carolina. So I actually decided to uproot my family, move away from my mom and dad, take my wife and kid out of North Carolina, which was really tough for me because I was definitely a diehard North Carolinian. I thought North Carolina was the best state around. But at the end of the day, if I was serious about improving my life, I had to move to where the opportunity was. And I'm not telling you to move to Ohio. These deals are available anywhere in the Rust Belt, and they're not available in New York. So it's totally up to you. I think there's going to come a time, maybe not New York, but there's going to come a time when the housing market corrects itself. I albeit the Rust Belt go up to New York prices or thereabouts, or New York prices come down to, you know, as I'm really interested. This is kind of a tangent. Sorry, this has nothing to do with your question, but the more people that are able to work remotely, like I think probably one of the best things you could do is get like a New York or California job that pays like multiple six figures and then move somewhere like, Dayton, and where, the median income is like 38 grand and everybody is doing just fine. So yeah, I mean, 50K cash, no debt is a phenomenal place to be. And you could almost write your ticket anywhere in the Midwest with that much money. And you could do a lot of damage. But if you look at your immediate surroundings, you're not able to do much, right? And not in an offensive way. Like you are probably in the top 1%. I'm really proud of you for, having that and no debt. That's a massive deal. You are already in your own right a very, very successful human. But where you're choosing to live is kind of dampening how much damage you could do with that money. If you're expecting to buy and move again within 3 years, would it be better to invest in an area with low inventory right now and high list prices, or higher inventory with slightly lower prices? If I was buying and moving again within 3 years, I don't think I would mind either of those scenarios. What I would do is, especially if you're going to stay local, I would, but you're moving to America, I think, and you currently live in Canada. One of the things that I'm doing is each time I buy a house, even for myself, I do my best to figure out, like, is this going to be a good rental? And if it is, and the way I figure that out is I look at the market rents for that area, for like the square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, and then all the expenses. Same as you would analyze any other rental property. But I do my very best to make sure that the house that I buy to live in will also make a phenomenal rental property. That way I can move kind of at my leisure, and I have a phenomenal plan to make it a rental property, and it should do pretty well. So that would be my advice for your situation, is just to make sure that it is going to be a good rental. And so long as it's going to be a good rental, you can keep it as a rental for a while, refinance, do a cash out refinance whenever you have a decent amount of equity, use that to build a portfolio elsewhere, or sell it. But, selling it could be secondary and not your only option. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you hopping on here. And it happens every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Thanks for all the info. Would you recommend investing in out-of-state HUD homes? It depends on, again, personal preference. If you're comfortable investing out of state, then I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I know a lot of people that invest out of state because of the insurance agency that I run. I actually have a lot of out of state investor clients. It's scary. It's easy to get taken advantage of when you are out of state, but at the same time, I've been taken advantage of, and I live right here in the midst of all my rental properties. So it really comes down to making sure that you are diligent, finding a good team that you can trust, that has your best interest, and, going from there. I'm a city worker, stuck for another 15 years. I would disagree with that, man. I was a city worker when I left. I was in law enforcement. And I mean, what I did was I weighed out all the pros and cons, because sure, I mean, you're right. If I stayed for another 15 years as well, I had a quote unquote sweet pension. But I mean, looking back at it, I would have done myself a massive disservice if I stayed in law enforcement for another 15 years, because at this point we have, 85 plus rentals, that gross our rental portfolio alone, not to count our other businesses, gross $50,000 a month. So that pension that I was, so adamant to keep, and the quote unquote like health insurance that I just didn't want to lose, it was costing me way more than I was giving it credit for. Like I held it on this pedestal, but it's not at all that way. So I would just challenge you, man. I don't disagree with you. I wouldn't fault you for staying, especially if you love what you do. But the way that you said stuck for another 15 years, I doubt it. And if you're a city employee, keep in mind that every city needs employees. So that's one of the reasons that I was comfortable in moving and taking this large quote unquote risk, because I have always considered myself to be a very conservative person, not very much so a risk taker. But once you start thinking things through, calculating what you're gaining, what you're losing, risk becomes a little bit different than what it looks like on the surface. And since I was in law enforcement, I knew that every single city in America is understaffed on a law enforcement perspective at the moment. So if what I'm doing fails massively and I have to go back or find a job, I have a pretty sweet resume to be a cop almost anywhere. So there's that. Yeah, man, I appreciate you. Keep in touch, man. Keep in touch. Send me an email. I'd love to hear more about you and what you want to do with your life. Yeah, I mean, cash flow makes the world go round. Like, I would rather have a significant amount of cash flow over a nest egg, and that's what I currently think. Now, either I'm the fool, which could be wrong, hence the disclaimer on the bottom. But I find a lot of people, they talk about their retirement in a sense of having a nest egg and having enough money to live on for the rest of their life. Well, I personally, I hate that idea, because at some point, you're going to run out of money. And if not, then the money that you're holding is being printed by the masses. And that's been the case since, like 1913, whenever the Federal Reserve was founded. So, that's a privately held entity, by the way. I don't know if you guys knew that. It was pretty mind boggling whenever I learned that. So every day that you have this nest egg, your money is becoming worth less and less, and you're also spending it on a daily basis. So you're driving yourself into a hole, no pun intended. Because of what most people's age are when they retire. It was funny. So I would much rather have cash flow over a large nest egg or something in reserves. So I would much rather be able to control and have significant money coming in on a monthly basis rather than a nest egg, even from like a pension perspective, because your pensions, so much of it is out of your control. And let's say America does some radical thing, it wouldn't be hard. It would be a big red button and a lot of people would be mad, but your pension could also most certainly go defunct or not be able to pay out. So control is a big thing for me. I would say having positive control over your own investments. So stocks would not be included in this. Pensions would not be included in this. Almost anything that you could fit inside of a 401k IRA would not fit into this. I'm a huge fan of owning businesses that you can, walk into, speak to the staff of. I'm a huge fan of owning rental properties, things that you can walk into. You are, one of the top people on the totem pole when in these types of things, when you have positive control. So you can dictate the expenses. You could dictate the income. You could dictate the level of service provided, rather than depending on a bunch of other people for your money. And yes, I'll be moving back to the U.S. and live in Canada right now. I would need to sell due to double taxation as well as the high price of homes in Canada. Yes, definitely. So I need to recoup that money invested. Yeah, I mean, oh, that's right. That's right. I'm remembering a lot more about your situation now. Right after this live stream, I'm gonna email you back before I leave my office. That way I can get this off my plate. You and I can connect and we can talk about this a little bit further. I don't think I'm going to be able to help you, but hey, at least I can be a sounding board, right? I'm funny. All right. Well, I think this has been a good one. I'm very confident in this. If anybody has like one last question, I'll stick around for a few seconds, but I think I'm about good. I think I'm about good. So let me check the subscribers. Let me see if we've increased at all. 5,998. Hey, we're close. We're about to hit 6,000 on this live stream. That's fun. So hey, if you know of anybody that this channel might benefit, feel free to share it with them. Oh, I'm funny. This was a good one. You guys asked some really good questions this week, and we had some really good conversation, in my opinion. A short email is great. No need to spend a ton of time. Yeah. Nice. Good work. I have 5 rentals. Just sold my 6th house rental at a good price. There's a lot of foreclosures in Texas where I can buy 3 houses, a fourplex, or a commercial business. What do you recommend? I would stay away from commercial businesses until we get on the other side of this pandemic or whatever it is that we're in. I would stay with what you know. You already have 5 rentals, so you're pretty well solid in what could go wrong and what hasn't gone wrong. So I would say go ahead and buy some more homes. Yeah, I would buy another 3. I don't necessarily like 4 units as much. Now the reason is now 4 units are fine. Some people live a really long time in 4 units, but I prefer single family homes because you get a little bit more pride of ownership. And I get that there's outliers, like some of our multifamily buildings have people that take an extraordinary amount of pride, and they keep it very clean, all the common areas and whatnot. But for the most part, single family homes, you can get like longer term tenants, not as much turnover, and people tend to take better care of things because it's a reflection of them. So that's why I like single family homes. A fourplex, I mean, that would be fine too. Yeah, thank you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. I'll definitely recommend you. Thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Freddie. And you keep tuning in. I'm looking forward to learning a lot more about everybody because again, hey, I got into this to have two-way conversation, not just to talking to a camera. So yeah, looking forward to learning a lot more about you guys. All right. Well, I'm going to check this subscriber count one more time, just on the off chance that tons of people subscribed. No, but hey, we're going to hit 6,000 one day, probably in a few minutes, actually. All righty. Well, I appreciate it. ASN, I hope that was helpful. That's what I would do. Single family home. I would buy those 3 more. That'll put you to 8. I guess the 4 unit will put you to 9, but 4 units are funny because then I don't know how it is in Texas. Do you have to pay utilities like the water, sewer, trash? Because that always frustrates me about multifamilies too. On single family homes, you could subrogate all of the utilities back to the tenant. In fact, they should be in their name from the beginning. So there's that. If you have to pay for any of the utilities whatsoever, I would rather you purchase 3 homes. That's what I would do. If you don't have to pay any of the utilities at all on that 4 unit, if all the water is metered separately, and you don't have to pay for any of the trash, then the 4 unit might be good. So I would do the three because that'll get you 8 properties, really close to that 10 unit mark, the 10 property mark. I mean, it was a big one for us. I'm sure at 5, you're starting to see the benefits of the cash flow and how some things could go wrong on any given month, and the cash flow is sufficient to take care of it. So 10 for us is when we stopped having to put more money into our LLC just to keep it afloat. All righty. Well, I'm going to call it a day. I appreciate you guys. And hey, next week, Friday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard, looking forward to talking to you guys. See ya.